Welcome to Personal Development Mastery Podcast, episode 275. Happy New Year 2023. It's been 2 weeks since the previous episode, and I realized that similarly to what I did last year, I have the tendency to need to take time off during the end of the year and do my annual self-reflection process. I take time to look at my wins of the year, the lessons that I've learned or the things that didn't go in the way that I wanted them to go. And of course, it's also a period of looking ahead, setting goals for the next year, the intentions for the person that I want to be, what I want to achieve, and so on. So in this episode today, I will share with you my reflection and also my wins and gratitude for 2022. In terms of the podcast, in the previous episode, I discussed some of the wins, some of the biggest ones being climbing from the global 2% to the global 1.5 top percent, and also compared to the listenership, the downloads if you want, from last year, the numbers in 2022 compared to 2021 were roughly twice as many. I am very grateful for this growth of the podcast. The other big win for my year was the experience of the 10-day silent meditation Vipassana retreat that I discussed previously, and because of its uniqueness and its importance and of how challenging it was, I consider it to be one of my biggest wins of 2022. The other important win and gratitude for me was the previous year I started working with people who want to create and launch their own podcast, but they're not sure of what to talk about or how to do it. So I started working with them as a mentor and coach to help them in the creation and accelerate the launch of their podcast, making it a smooth process. And I actually also did a free 4-day challenge about it last year, which I'm planning to repeat next week as well. So if you're interested in having your podcast, but you're not sure of what to talk about or what form exactly the podcast will take, or maybe if you're not that tech savvy and you don't really want to learn all the specifics and technical aspects of a podcast, then the challenge is for you, and you will find the link in the show notes. One more win and gratitude of 2022, and this is something I haven't shared before, so you will be the first one to hear it in the podcast, and you will hear much more about it in the coming weeks and months. But for now, all I will share is that back in July, I had an inspired thought of creating a book, my first book, and a few days ago, the final draft of the book was finished. So right now the book is in the final stages of editing, so it's not going to be long before it's ready. The topic is, of course, personal development. What I have done is taken the concept that Tim Ferriss in particular, and others as well, but Tim Ferriss in particular, has used in his book Tools of Titans, where he collected the knowledge, the wisdom from his podcast guests and created a book as a knowledge broker, distilling this wisdom of his guests. So I have done something similar with my book. I'm very happy about it and quite proud of it as well. I consider it a great win because, as I said, it came to me as an idea. So in a way it felt like it was assigned to me by my higher self, if you want, like I had a duty to write it. I became very inspired and I wrote it relatively quickly. The vast majority of it, the core of the book, I finished over the first 2 months when I started. So these are some remarkable wins and gratitude for the year that just ended. And I will share with you also some of the biggest lessons that I had and realizations. And the first one has to do with alcohol. So I will give a very brief background here. The previous year, 2021, and up to some point in 2022, I was on an alcohol-free adventure, as I called it. I didn't have a drink for 15 months. In 2022, I started again having alcohol on a few occasions, maybe once or twice a month. However, this led to December, the previous month, which is usually a period that people drink more, and I also did. The lesson here actually is about the effects of alcohol, which is not something new, but what made this realization about it more clear to me is because I've been using for over a year now the Whoop band, which is a fitness, a wellness tracker. I will put a link in the show notes to check it out. It's very accurate tracking. So it measures the heart rate, skin temperature, even the oxygen saturation levels of the blood, and gives you some incredible insights about how effective was your sleep, for example, or what your resting heart rate was, the heart rate variability. Some incredible information. It's certainly worth checking it out if you're looking for a fitness and wellness tracker to use. So the big realization was when I would look at my own readings the day after having drunk alcohol. And the shocking realization was that after an evening of drinking, my resting heart rate would increase a lot. I saw it increase by 20 in one occasion. So in other words, my heart on that day was beating 20 times a minute faster than normally. And thinking about it now, it's scary how much more strain that puts on the heart. So yeah, big realization. Coming back to currently, I'm doing the dry January, starting again a period of cleansing. I have done the dry January as a challenge every January since 2018. And it always leads to some amazing insights and usually to me prolonging the abstinence period for much longer than just January. One other big lesson this year was about creating my reality, creating how things are in my life. You know, there is that phrase that your world follows your idea about yourself. What you think, you create. And I was very familiar with this phrase. I have read it in different iterations many times. But this year, with the realizations that I had, it became very evident that the inner world that I create with my internal dialogue expresses itself in the outside reality. There is a phrase one of my guests, Victoria Rader, shared in her interview with me, and it made a big impression on me. And she said, notice what you notice, because what you notice is what you create. So that's my biggest realization for this year, actually, realizing how this works. Because I said I knew about it, I had read about it, but it's when you actually see it happening and making the connection that the outside reality is reflecting what's happening inside of you. And when you actually experience it, when you see it happening, it's a very different way of understanding how what we think is what we create. As I look back, the last thing I will mention today is my gratitude to you, So thank you very much from my heart for listening to the podcast. And I will also express my sincere appreciation to the about 50 exceptional people who I was privileged to interview on my podcast last year. They have all been my inspiration and catalysts of my personal development journey. And before I conclude this first episode of 2023, the last thing to share is about the next episode, 276, that will follow next Monday, the 9th of January. And we will go back to the usual format of 2 episodes a week, Monday with an interview and Thursday with a solo episode. I am very much looking forward to another year of growth, of inspiration, of taking action towards improving our lives. So again, I wish you a happy new year 2023 with personal growth, success and fulfillment. And until next time, stand out, don't fit in.